There's a stone crock sitting in the root cellar my Papa Harlan dug into this Kentucky hillside, and it has been sitting down there since before I was born. Right now, that crock is full of shredded cabbage and plain salt and not one other thing, with no vinegar, no pressure canner, and not 1 watt of electricity anywhere near it. In about 3 weeks, that cabbage will turn into sauerkraut. So alive it bubbles like a slow creek, and it will hold in that cool cellar clear through winter into March and April, tasting better every month it sits. My mama Opal filled that same crock every fall of her life, and she fed a family through Depression winters out of it. Folks today buy sauerkraut in a little jar at the grocery store, and in a minute I will tell you why that stuff is not even the same food. But stay with me all the way to the end, because Mama had one rule about this crock that she would not bend for anybody. She would not shred a single head of cabbage for kraut until after the first frost had hit the garden. And the reason is not superstition. It is one specific thing the cold does inside that cabbage. And it is the whole difference between kraut that keeps until Easter and kraut that goes soft and gray by Christmas. I'm Roy Mullins. I'm 59 years old, and I live on the 40 acres at the head of a holler in eastern Kentucky where my people have farmed since the 1800s. I spent 22 years as an electrician in the coal mines before I came back home to run the old home place full time. Everything I know in a kitchen came from my mama Opal, and she put up kraut in that cellar every single fall for better than 60 years. Now let me tell you what that old crock replaces. A little 16-ounce jar of sauerkraut at the grocery store runs $4 or $5, and nearly every jar on that shelf has been cooked in the canning until everything alive in it is dead. Some of them were never fermented at all. They just soured shredded cabbage with vinegar and put the word kraut on the label. Meanwhile, a good hard head of fall cabbage weighs about 5 pounds and costs a couple of dollars at any farm stand. And out of your own garden, it costs you a packet of seed. That one head makes about 2 quarts of real, living kraut. Run that arithmetic across a whole winter of eating, and you will understand why Mama never bought a jar of anything. And the new recipes on the internet have it backwards too. They tell you to ferment your cabbage in the refrigerator, which crowds out your groceries and leans on the power company for a job a cool corner of the house has done for 200 years. Up here at the head of the holler, we make our own power off the solar panels I wired myself, and I am not fixing to spend it on cabbage. Salt, a crock, and time do the whole job, and keep holding on to that question about the frost, because when we get to it, it is going to explain nearly everything else I show you today. Now, everything I am fixing to teach you comes out of the book me and Brenda put together. Save $9,000 a year. The Appalachian Homestead Manual. It is our old mountain systems written out plain, step by step. The garden, the pantry, and the putting up, the root cellar, the smokehouse, the kitchen, the power, and the water. Those methods together save our household better than $9,000 a year. And this kraut you are learning today is one small taste of what is in there. The kraut has its own place in the book, written out just like I am about to show you, so you do not have to scribble notes while I talk. The book is $17 right now, marked down from $47. And the first method you try usually pays that $17 back inside a month. The way I see it, that is not money spent. That is money coming home. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time. There is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. All right. Let's get you a crock full of kraut. First thing you need is the vessel, and this part matters more than folks think. The old standby is a stoneware crock, the heavy glazed kind you see at every estate sale in the country. And a 3-gallon crock will hold about 15 pounds of cabbage. Run your hand around the inside before you use one. If the glaze is cracked or chipped down to the clay, set that crock on the porch with flowers in it, because brine will pull things out of raw clay that you do not want in your food. No crock is no problem though. A wide-mouth glass jar does the same work on a smaller scale. And a half-gallon jar handles one big head of cabbage just fine. What you cannot use is metal. No aluminum stock pot, no galvanized bucket, nothing metal at all. The kraut makes acid as it works, and acid eats metal. And then you are eating the metal, stone or glass. That is the whole rule. Second thing is the salt. And now, folks, pay attention here, because this is the part everybody gets wrong. You want plain salt with nothing added to it. Canning and pickling salt is perfect, and a pure sea salt with one ingredient on the label works too. Regular table salt has iodine in it and a powder to keep it from clumping. And both of those fight the very thing you are trying to grow. The iodine slows down the good bacteria, and the anti-caking powder turns your brine cloudy as dishwater. A 4-pound box of pickling salt costs about $3 at the grocery store, and will put up more kraut than you can eat in 2 winters. Third thing is the cabbage itself. You want the late varieties, the ones that come off in October and November. Pick heads that feel hard as a basketball and heavy for their size. A loose, light head makes limp kraut. If you grow your own, leave them standing in the garden as long as you can. And if you are buying, a farm stand in the fall beats the grocery store every time. And there is a reason the timing matters so much. The same reason behind Mama's frost rule. Hold that thought. Because I promise you the why is coming, and it is worth the wait. Last things are small. You need a plate that fits down inside your crock. You need a clean weight to set on the plate. My pawpaw used a smooth creek rock, boiled clean in a pot on the stove, and I use that same rock today. A glass jar filled with water does the same job. And you need a clean cotton cloth, a flour sack towel or an old pillowcase, and a piece of string. Now we make kraut, and we take it one step at a time. There is no hurrying this, so pour yourself some coffee. Step 1, strip off the loose outer leaves. Save 2 or 3 of the biggest clean ones and set them aside, because they have a job at the end. Step 2, cut the head into quarters on your cutting board. Then cut the hard white core out of each quarter and toss it to the chickens. Step 3, shred it thin. A long knife works fine, and so does an old wooden kraut cutter if you were lucky enough to inherit one. You are aiming for shreds about as thin as a quarter is thick. Thin shreds give up their water easy, and the water is everything. Step 4, weigh out 5 pounds of shredded cabbage into your biggest bowl. A bathroom scale with the bowl on it works if that is what you have. 5 pounds is about 1 large head. Step 5, measure 3 tablespoons of your plain salt over that cabbage. Now hear that number again, because the whole batch lives or dies on it. 3 tablespoons of salt for every 5 pounds of cabbage. Not a handful, not a guess. Too little salt and the wrong things grow. Too much and the good bacteria stall out. And your kraut stays flat and too salty to enjoy. Step 6, get your clean hands in the bowl and squeeze. Knead it and crush it like you are mad at it. Mama stood me on a chair beside her at about 8 years old to do this job. And she told me the cabbage was not done until it cried. She meant the water. After about 10 minutes of squeezing, the salt pulls the water right out of the shreds. And you will see brine pooling in the bottom of the bowl. Your hands will get tired. Rest them when you need to. There is no rush at all. Step 7, pack the cabbage into your crock 1 double handful at a time. Press each handful down hard with your fist before the next one goes in. You are driving the air out, and the air is the enemy of this whole operation. When you press, brine should rise up around your knuckles. Keep salting, squeezing, and packing 5 pounds, and 3 tablespoons at a time until the crock is about 3/4 full. Leave that top quarter empty, because the kraut will bubble up as it works. Step 8 is the rule above every other rule. The cabbage must sit under the brine, 1 to 2 inches under, every hour of every day from now until the day you eat it. Under the brine, the good bacteria do their work where air cannot reach. Above the brine is where mold gets a foothold. Nearly every ruined batch of kraut in history died right here at this one rule. Say it with me. Under the brine all the time. Step 9. If the brine has not risen over the cabbage by the next morning, you make a little extra and pour it on. Dissolve 1½ tablespoons of plain salt in 1 quart of cool water. That is 1½ tablespoons per quart. And write that one down. Pour in just enough to cover the shreds by an inch or two. Step 10. Take those big whole leaves you saved and lay them flat across the top like a blanket. Set your plate on the leaves. Set your boiled rock or your water jar on the plate. Then tie your cotton cloth over the mouth of the crock with the string. The cloth lets the ferment breathe and keeps every gnat in the county out. And believe me, they will come calling. So let's gather that back up before we move on. Shred it thin, salt it at 3 tablespoons per 5 pounds, squeeze it until it cries, pack it tight, and keep it under the brine with a leaf, a plate, and a rock. That right there is the whole recipe, and it has not changed on this mountain in 100 years. Now comes the part where you do almost nothing, and doing almost nothing correctly is its own skill. Set the crock somewhere that stays between 65 and 72 degrees Fahrenheit. Hear those numbers again, 65 to 72 degrees. A corner of the kitchen away from the cook stove and out of the sunshine is about right in most houses. Warmer than 75 degrees and the kraut ferments too fast, goes soft, and can turn on you. Colder than 60 and it works so slow, you will be waiting until February. My crock sits on the stone floor of the cellar stairway, where the thermometer reads 68 degrees nearly year-round. By day 2 or day 3, put your ear near the crock and you will hear it. Little bubbles rising, a soft fizz like a creek under ice. That sound is the good bacteria eating and turning the cabbage sour. And it is one of the finest sounds on a homestead. Brenda says I stand there listening to cabbage like other men listen to a ball game, and she is not wrong. Every 2 or 3 days, untie the cloth and look in. If you see a thin white film floating on the brine, do not panic and do not pour anything out. That film is a harmless wild yeast, and the old-timers just called it the bloom. Skim it off with a clean spoon, rinse your plate and your rock in hot water. Put everything back and tie the cloth down again. Skimmed and submerged, your kraut is perfectly fine. Your nose is the final judge through this whole process. Working kraut smells sour and clean like pickles and fresh bread had a baby. If a batch ever smells rotten or turns slimy, something went wrong at the salt or the brine line, and you feed it to the compost pile and start again $2 poorer. In 40 years, I can count my lost batches on one hand. How long does it take? At 70 degrees, about 3 weeks. In a cooler spot, it may run 4, 5, even 6 weeks and cooler. And slower actually builds a deeper flavor. Start tasting at 3 weeks. Pull a fork of it from under the brine. Done kraut is sour enough to make your jaw tighten, still has a little crunch, and tastes clean all the way through. If it just tastes like salty cabbage, tie the cloth back on and give it another week. The kraut will tell you when it is ready, and we are nearly to. That frost business I promised you, because the frost is the reason a good batch gets sour enough to keep in the first place. Once the kraut suits your tongue, it is time to put it to bed for the winter. And this is the step that separates kraut that lasts until spring from kraut that dies in the pantry. Fermentation made your kraut. Cold is what keeps it. You have to move that crock somewhere. The temperature stays below 45 degrees Fahrenheit. Hear it again, below 45 degrees. Cold slows the ferment to a crawl, so the kraut holds right where you love it instead of souring past eating. A root cellar like Papa's is perfect. So is an unheated basement, a cold back porch, an insulated outbuilding, or, for a small batch, the back of the refrigerator. If your cold spot might freeze hard, pack the kraut into glass jars instead of leaving it in the crock. Make sure the brine covers the shreds in every jar. Cap them loose, and jars are easier to shuffle somewhere safer on the bitter nights. Kept cold and kept under brine, that kraut will hold 6 months and better. And it genuinely improves as the winter goes along. The crock we open in March always beats the one we open in December. 2 housekeeping rules keep it perfect all season. Always dig your kraut out with a clean fork, never your fingers. And every time you take some, press what is left back down under the brine before you cover it up. The brine is the shield. As long as the shield holds, nothing gets past it. Now, some folks hot water bath their kraut into sealed jars for the shelf, and done by the tested times, that is a perfectly safe way to keep it. But the heat cooks it, and everything alive in that kraut, all those good bacteria your stomach loves, dies in the bath, and you have made the same dead kraut the store sells. Me and Brenda keep our eating kraut cold and alive, and we put up our 300 jars of other things instead. Fry it with pork and taters, pile it on beans and cornbread, or eat it cold right off the fork like I do standing in the cellar where Brenda cannot see me. And that brings us to the part I promised you at the start. Why would Mama Opal, who never wasted a day in her life, stand in that garden in October and refuse to cut one head of cabbage for kraut until frost had come? Here is what the cold actually does. A cabbage is a living thing, and when frost threatens, it protects itself the only way it can. It turns the starch stored in its leaves into sugar, because sugar in the sap works like antifreeze and keeps the cells from freezing solid. That is a plain fact of how these plants survive, and it is why frost-kissed cabbage and collards taste noticeably sweeter than the same plant picked in September. Now think about what your kraut actually is. Those good bacteria in the crock eat sugar, and what they make from it is lactic acid. That acid is the preservative. The acid is the whole reason kraut keeps until April with no canner and no refrigerator. So a cabbage cut after frost goes into the crock loaded with sugar. The bacteria feast, the acid runs deep, and the kraut comes out sour, crisp, and armored for a 6-month winter. A cabbage cut before frost goes in short on sugar. The ferment runs weak, the acid comes up shallow, and that is the batch that turns soft and gray by Christmas. Mama never heard the word chemistry in her life. She was measuring the sugar in that cabbage with nothing but a calendar and a cold morning. And she measured it exactly right. The old people knew things, friends. They just knew them by different names. And that little piece of know-how right there is 1 page out of the book Me and Brenda put together, Save $9,000 a Year, the Appalachian Homestead Manual. The whole book works the same way this video did. The old mountain methods written out plain and step by step with the why behind every step, covering the garden, the putting up, the root cellar, the smokehouse, the kitchen, the power, and the water. It is $17, down from $47, and 1 crock of kraut against store prices pays most of that back by itself. Now go ahead and grab your phone and open up your camera, the same one you use to take pictures. Point it at that square code on your screen and hold it steady for a second. A little link will pop up, give it a tap, and it will take you straight to the book. And if you are watching on your phone right now, the link is waiting for you right down below in the description. Take your time, there is no rush at all. I'll wait right here. So that is real kraut, start to finish, cabbage cut after frost, 3 tablespoons of plain salt per 5 pounds packed under the brine, 3 weeks warm, and all winter cold. Now I want to hear from you. Did your mama or your papa have their own way of making kraut? A different crock? A different rule? A leaf of something laid on top? Put it in the comments below, because those little family ways are exactly the kind of knowledge that gets lost when nobody writes them down, and I read every single one. Next time, I'm going to show you how Mama kept fresh eggs good for 8 months with no refrigerator at all, using 1 cheap ingredient from the hardware store that most folks walk right past. Y'all take care now, and God bless.